I zoned out a little bit. My bad. Let me also adjust a couple of things with the, well, as much as I can anyway. Um, sorry, because I never did these blackout curtains correctly. So, whoop, they don't cover the windows all the way. I have to get longer. I have to get ones that are wider and longer in order to like actually cover back there properly. So, this is what we're kind of stuck with. Hi everybody, happy Wednesday. I hope the day was restful and productive for y'all. I am trying, for my part, to get up like an hour earlier than I normally do. Try to fit a little more stuff into the day. I'm doing my best TM. I managed to at least get up earlier than I did last time, because last time meaning yesterday, because yesterday I was conked. I was conked out for a while. But hey Val, hey Stubby, hi everybody, good to see y'all. I wasn't sure what I was going to program today. I got to keep some stuff with Shoot Lancer under the vest for right this second. Nothing bad. Just got to keep it secret, keep it safe for a little bit. And when I have something else to cook, I'll show y'all. Hey Base, how you doing? So yeah, we're just going to mess around with like Viral Core Buster stuff and do a little bit more like tutorializing things. Not that there's like a lot to do yet with that, but I always like having some of that stuff sorted out beforehand. It's a me thing. I prefer having some of that like sorted out beforehand-ish, just so that we can like just so we can kind of like keep the vibe right as far as that goes. Mess with the capture methods a little bit just to make sure that it's back correctly. But yeah, hopefully all are doing well. Okay, so let me think about this for a second. How do I want to do this? I've come to the realization that I don't do anything productive that I need to do after 12 p.m. So waking up at a vaguely standard time is vital to my ability to adult. Yeah, in my case, it's also that while I don't go to bed super early unless I absolutely have to, I am realizing that probably part of the reason why I'm not tired right, so the thing that I realized is that, at least something I've started to suspect, is that one of the reasons why I'm not like tired at night is because if I'm not doing enough in the daytime to like actually like wipe myself out. I don't mean in terms of like, you know, I don't mean in terms of like, oh yeah, I gotta like work myself until I'm exhausted so I can then like pass out. I don't mean it like that. But I mostly mean that by virtue of I gotta spend my time doing stuff in the day. So that when it's time to go to bed, one, I feel accomplished. Two, like I've done enough that it's like, all right, time to just like pass out. So yeah, I mostly don't mean that in yeah, I had to kind of like sit down and think about like the way that I kind of wanted to like phrase it, but I think the main line of thought is mostly along the lines of if I do enough things in the day, then what winds up happening is I have used up my energy and I get to just go like, all right, either I can relax and not feel self-conscious about relaxing, or I have like gotten enough stuff done that I was like, all right, I feel like I can chill. Okay. So yeah, using my brain a certain amount per day sounds about right. Yeah. All right. So then, all that said, though, let's be about that work that I was talking about. Okay. So first things first. Sometimes it's just like the small things, right? So I'm going to go over here into our dialog box, and if I am fortunate, I think I can actually finally okay, thank goodness it finally stopped being upset about it. Alright, cool. I need to go look at the settings on that, because that's a little bit too yeah. The main issue that I was having before is that Godot was getting angry when I was trying to put down the thing for that, and it was getting angry quickly. So I'm like, I need you to like not do that. Thank you. And it looks like it has agreed with that. Hey, Shiny. Let me open up my Godot tab collection over here. Let's see here. Want that later. Okay, and then I'm gonna want. How you doing, Shiny? Godot. Okay. Default texture filter to be nearest, if I can change the one that's already there. Okay. One of those two. I have options. I think it may be better to leave the default one as linear and then make exceptions like input helper. Nope, input prompts, icons, generic keyboard, mouse. Yeah, because this is the main problem. These are all separate ones, and that's alright. Let's not do that because adjusting all of them is going to be a pain in the ass, and I don't want to have to do that. So we're going to come over here to the default texture filter and say that it's nearest, and that should fix that. So, texture filters. To explain what those do, very briefly. Texture filter in this context means, hey, when we're dealing with 2D images, how do we treat them? Godot has 2 texture filter modes. Well, it has 4, but we're going to talk about linear and nearest neighbor. Nearest neighbor is what we would call pixel perfect. So when you do nearest neighbor, your scaling on images will be done in such a way that, like, you get, as you see sort of here now that I've done it, you get sharper edges on the actual things, but you see it also does the same thing to, like, our text boxes, which is not necessarily what we want. So let me go to dialog box. Y'all can't see it because of the way that certain settings work. So let's see, so resource. Wait a second. Can I edit this? I'm doing good. In and out with that. Blue Sky Ted want to talk about how often people stop caring about misogyny the moment that it's talk about air, especially when it comes to shipping. Look, at this point, like, they're friends. They are very good friends, and people who are insisting on being really weird about it and don't people who insist on being really weird about it and people insist on being weird about that because they're friends. Like, the game very clearly indicates that they're friends. And people who insist on being weird about the fact that they are friends, and if you have your shipping goggles on really tight, they're gay as shit. Like that, it's just what it is. I don't make the rules. Like, I'm just saying. It's been over 20 plus years now too, and I couldn't watch a lot of people's reverse shoes because of this behavior. Yeah. I know I haven't looked into what happens in Rebirth yet, even though I know in my mind that I'm gonna play it at some point, and I just haven't gotten around to it. But I feel like it's one of those games that I would have to play my basically. People going, Eric is knowing your people play failed cloud, so it's a red flag for me. Shipping war. About cloud being paired with one of them because people are really insistent on believing. People are really insistent on acting as if. How do I put it? People are really insistent on acting as if one or the other is Cloud's actual true soulmate because one of them doesn't care about him and the other does, or one of them is just like trying to steal the other from him, and they're just being really annoying and obnoxious in that way that only shippers who don't understand how to like talk about the thing that they like without being dipshits about it really are. Bloody hell, I know people who were born after this goddamn war started. Yeah, like, people just can't relax about this. Like, people, like, the reason why I'm not saying people can't be normal is because, like, normal is quote unquote relative and probably is also fake. But no, like, people just can't be dipshits about it, basically. Well, people can be dipshits about it, but the people who aren't being dipshits about it are being quiet because they have other things to be doing with their lives. And I am immensely grateful that they have other things to do with their lives. That's what I'm getting at. Okay, good. So that's there. Okay, now we gotta think about this for a second. So, If anything, I ship Aerith and keep it together in a polycule cloud, and I don't know, cloud needs time before having a serious romantic relationship for reasons. Yeah, no, that man is not ready for a relationship. He's not. There is no way. You could not talk me into believing that Cloud is ready for a relationship. That no. Nah. Nah. That man is not ready for that. He's not. He's not. There is no fucking way. He is not ready for that shit. Not even a little bit. I mean, in game modes, he's even in Turquoise, the One Night Stand. He's in the 97 release. Yeah. So, fair enough. More so related to what I'm trying to puzzle out here, insofar as like viral core buster stuff. So, one of the things with viral core busters that I did in the Unity version that I don't think I'm gonna do here in the Godot version is in viral core busters, I made it so that like the text appeared diegetically in the actual game world to give the impression of like, oh yeah, this is like you are watching like the thing show up on screen and like be there physically, but then it becomes harder to read when you move away from it, right? So I think I'm going to sort of lean more into what I did with Shoot Lancer and have the tutorial text show up. The tutorial text will actually show up as part of the HUD, and then the HUD will have like functions for spawning tutorial text and things like that. I think that makes the most sense. So we're going to do a VBox container so that we can like organize prompts vertically. Then we're going to have that VBox container hang out in this top right corner of the screen. Then we're going to stretch it out some. So we're going to say 515 by 500. Yeah, that sounds cool, but it also kind of means that anytime you need text to appear, we need a place to appear on. Yeah, I mean, like, it's literally just like, yeah, it would just be like literally floating roughly in, like, visibly, roughly speaking. But I was like, so that's why when I was sitting and thinking about it, I'm like, nah, we can do without it, I think. So here's the prompt container. Now we're gonna just add over here HBox. Well, no, we want the thing itself, and then we want the HBox container. So we're gonna do a control, and we're going to call this tutorial prompt. So the first thing we're gonna do really is just build the tutorial prompt object itself. We're going to build the tutorial prompt object itself first, and then we'll deal with the actual other stuff that's related to it. So tutorial prompt, control node, and the reason why we have this is so that we can do a texture node, 9 patch rect. So this is the way that it works. We have a nice little 9 patch rectangle that will fit here and do that stuff, right? And I know this one looks distorted and kind of like weirded out, but we're gonna fix this. Yeah, never mind. It's like 60. It's 60 on all those sides, actually. I can't remember measurements. There we go. Well, actually, that's about right, but no, this is like not wide enough. So load. So quick load. Huh. Did I never? Huh. I never did that. Okay. Then that means it's time for me to make up a texture real quick. Just a nice simple one that we can use for the background here. Now, 12 by 512, 72 dpi. Y'all can't see it because I'm literally just putting together like a quick. I'm putting together just a quick thing. So 512, 512. This is 0, 0. Hey Squishy, how you doing? Hunger, but food is in the oven, so it's on its way. How is everyone? We're doing all right, I think. Corner. Straight. Oh yeah. Huh. Yeah, this is pretty much exactly how I did it the last time, huh? So, rounded corners, paved corners, cut out. Yeah, no. Let me see here. Square caps, and then yeah, nice rounded corners. File, save as. Oh yeah, I forgot I had the button design is also there. So to call this one tutorial box, AF design. We just need to save this as a PNG. Box PNG, and then I just need to open up. But good to hear the dinner's on the at least. That's always good. Okay. Okay, good. These two match. File. for. So I realized that it looks like I never exported the button either. So we're just gonna do those two things. Trying to set it up so that y'all could see like the art stuff I was doing would have been a little bit of a hassle. So that's the only reason why I didn't do it. Game projects. Open that new window. Resources. Go into Power Busters. Wait, did I have to split between things, don't I? That's annoying. Past me might have done something silly. Did I put it in dot? Why would I put it in there? Sean, why did past you do that? That's not helpful. Literally not helpful. It's saved across two separate things. For what reason? Why did I do that? Alright. That's a conversation that sometimes past me just does doofus shit, I guess. It's a pain, but can't be helped. Okay, good. Oh, I forgot to turn off the backgrounds on that thing. So now I gotta redo it because the button, no, the tutorial box itself has white on it. And I forgot to take off the background. So edit, document setup, I think. Yeah. Color, transparent background. I forgot to do that, so that's why it's being silly. Export, tutorial box, yes. Grab this. So, Affinity Photo is, so I guess I do have this funny story to share. Adobe absolutely got its clock cleaned trying to show up on Blue Sky with a very what's the energy that I would describe this as? Pretending like their shit don't stink energy. They came with a very, very big amount of that. Very bold of them, very brave of them, assuming that they would not in fact get their clock cleaned for showing up on Blue Sky and going like, hey, so share with us like the way that you all like to do your XYZ. No, people were so incandescently upset at them until they left, and it was great. And I bring that up because in place of using Blue Sky, personally speaking, I have made a point of using what's it called instead? Of using the Affinity Suite instead. There are some things that the Affinity Suite unfortunately does not have, but it includes a Photoshop equivalent, an Illustrator equivalent, and a whatever the one Adobe uses for like laying out books and stuff. I don't remember the name right now. It's not all. It doesn't all have feature parity, unfortunately, but at least for most of the things that I want to do, it is good enough. So basically, I literally just went into Affinity Designer and just like did this real quick, just to be like, all right, let's just feel this out. So that's already set. Tutorial prompt EG. this is the control node for this thing. Say that the node is like 100. So there's the tutorial prompt background. And now, within this thing, now we want an HBox container. HBox container, we want to make sure it fits to the whole thing. Actually, we're gonna reparent this to a new node. Actually, we're gonna do margin container, and the margin container is going to fit across this whole thing. And then the margin container, we just need to make sure that we've got a nice margin on it. What happens with the margin container is that with the margin container, it'll make it so that we get everything fit within this nice little segment here, you see? And then inside of this HBox container, now we have the two things we want to fit in. So we're going to do two control nodes. This is going to be input prompt containers, or input prompt container, right? Or input prompt control, and then this one is going to be text control. So the reason why we have these control nodes here is basically speaking the way that Godot likes to have things arranged when you're doing stuff in the HUD is that you have a control node to dictate the size and shape of the element, and then inside of that control node you put stuff that sort of like further defines it. So we have a prompt container, which is a type of control node that does like layout stuff. So we get a nice set of horizontal prompts, right? Then we have a control node that holds the whole tutorial prompt. Inside of that, we have a 9-patch rect for the background. Then we have a margin container so that we can like shrink down the stuff so it fits within the text box here. And then inside the HBox container, we have an input prompt control that will give us the space to drop off a. So let's do. Yeah, that should be good enough. And if it's too big, I can shrink that down. And now we can add in an input prompt. No, not input prompt. We want action prompt. Good. Now the action prompt, all we have to do is make sure that it is fit to that, and there we go. So now, right, if I need to control the size of the actual input prompt, right, rather than changing the action prompt here, because the action prompt I'm already told to be maximum size of whatever it's a child of, right? And this now, if it measures down 75 by 75, we get that. And now the text control, we can just put in here, add child node. We're gonna just do text. We want rich text label. In the text control itself, we just need to make sure that we fit it to the rest of this. So the input, so the actual tutorial prompt itself is 515, right? It's 515 by like 100, but we knock like, let's see here. If you look at the margin container, we measured it all in by 20. So we knock about 20 off of each of those dimensions. So here, right, probably if we do like, you can also just like put in numbers and see what works. If you're like, I don't remember how long I made this thing. So yeah, like 375 looks about right. Now the rich text label, all we have to do is make sure that this text expands all the way out to fill it. And then we can do right? But on the off chance that if we look at this text label and we're like, this is, yeah, we can't control the exact size here because it'll always fill up the full thing. So if we need to, right, we can just sort of shrink the actual rich text label within it. So we can go down here to layout, we can go to the transform, we can do like this. Well, 37.5 is a little short, but it'll do for right now. And then the main thing we want to do is that within this, we still want it to be, if we're not careful, right? If I do like this, for example, you see that it shrinks down and it becomes not at all useful. So for the position, we want to just do like this. Nope. Probably cut this in half again, I think. So now we get like nice centered text, right? And if I want to make this a little bit bigger, because I might want to, right? So if we go to text control, it's that size. So if we do, for example, say this is 70, then this is 37.5. Well, no. It's a little tricky. You have to kind of like finesse it a little bit if you want it to be like dead center. But this is probably good enough. Prompt. Control, and then this is just prompt text label. So the reason why I've gone to all this trouble is that I wanted to build out what the prompt itself looks like before I actually do anything. Right? Just to make sure that I have a feeling for, is the size right? Does this look good? All this other stuff. So, for example, maybe I want it to be smaller. So we get like this instead, right? And maybe the reason I want that is because I want to be able to do like multiples of these without it going way too far over. And if it does, it's like, okay, this doesn't look, you notice how it's like, okay, this doesn't look good, right? Which means that probably we want the actual prompt control itself to be a little bit wider, right? So we could do like, so yeah, 600, 625, yeah, 625 looks about right. Right? 625 looks about right. You see, the tutorial prompt BG itself is spread out, so is the margin container, so that they're both still about the same size. The HBox container is also spread out. Yeah, so ideally, we want to be able to fit like at least 4 of these in, right? And that looks pretty good, I think. So even if I were to like get rid of some of these, hey, Cat Wizard, how you doing? Good to see you. And we can probably do things for like dynamically adjusting the size or something like that if I can figure it out. But let's see here. Yeah, 575 is, yeah, too big. So we want 500 maybe? Yeah, that should do it, give or take. Okay, so now, right, we actually have a tutorial prompt, right? And now I can go ahead and make a script for it. So the reason why I took my time and didn't make a script right away is because I wanted to lay it out first, see what it looks like, right? And now I can come over here, create a script. We're gonna set up this script script here. We're going to drop it onto this tutorial prompt control node, build it. Because ideally, what we're going to do now, hopefully you're doing well, Gappers. So like ideally what we're going to do now that we've made the script and we're building the project again, the idea is that now we can sit down and fill in the script with like all the variables and stuff that I need, because I put together the thing first so I could see what I need. All right. So now we can do region export nodes and region exported nodes and variables. We're going to call this one export category. Export label prompt. I got sucked into the Magic deck. I know that feel. I respect people who are able to like play Magic, because like what happens with me is that I get like freaked out when I start thinking about like the meta game that goes to playing card games, and I can never really enjoy it because it's like there's so many options and so many things, and it's like it's not even so much that I'm going to say that fighting games have a more finite set of limits, which makes it easier for my brain to like process it. So like with card games, I rapidly hit my limit super fast on that front. I try not to sweat the meta, but it's also like just trying to understand the shape of the thing is like, oh god. Oh, I go to the meta and I just make modern decks by picking a card combo. I like building a deck around it or a creature type. Yeah, it makes sense. That also works. Text, the rich text label node for I'm gonna have to figure out a different thing in a little bit. I'm not gonna sweat that just yet. So there's gonna be one thing that I need to figure out how to do using code that I haven't done yet. And it's gonna be scary, and I'm not going to necessarily enjoy it, but I will see if I can figure out a way to get around it at some other point. So we're gonna do for right now public void set prompt. We're going to leave that alone, right? Build this. Back over here. And let's take a look at this now. Look at tutorial prompt control. You see we have exported nodes. Prompt label text node is this one right here. Cool. You got that. It works. Right? String text, and then public void because there are a couple ways I can handle this, right? do. Damn it, where's the lerp? Hang on a second. I'm going to explain what this code does in a minute. I will explain what that code that I wrote without explaining does in like a second. Just want to make sure that I can actually finish my thought here. So, Godot has a lot of different ways of like handling things like fade outs and things like that. If you recall from a previous stream, I've talked extensively about lerp and what it does, and I'll re-explain it here. There's probably like a more precise way of doing that, but be asked right now. Let's see. Prompt. Yep, and that's exactly what we want. Here is export node. input displays a specific button. Export it as a regular node because it's so this is where things are going to get a little bit tricky. You have to be a little careful. So the main reason why I say that is that if we look at this action prompt here, right? If we look carefully at the action prompt, its script is actually written in it's written in Godot script, right? So I have to be very explicit about how I do some of these things, right? If I'm not careful, because this is written in Godot script and this is written in C#, I have to be very explicit about how I actually set this up. So public, to demonstrate what I mean, public void set prompt string new and string new text. Just to set prompt new text, so I don't have to write code twice. And then all I need to do here is prompt input prompt node dot call. So here's where I have to be very specific, right? I have to come over here and make sure I get the name right. Do set underscore action. And then the parameters that are included will be new command. And the reason why I had to be very specific about this is that what will happen is, right, when I say, when I say call here, right, you can't see there's a tooltip here. I'll read the tooltip for you, though you can't see it. It says, calls the method on the object and returns the result. This method supports a variable number of objects, so parameters can be passed to the comma-separated list. That sounds like a lot. I'm going to explain it like this. You can, using C# and Godot, arbitrarily call a function, whether it exists as a script, as part of a node, or whatever, by using this call function. But you have to make sure that you get the exact function that you want to call correct first, and then you pass on the parameters after you do a comma. So what this should do is calls to input prompt. That's not really what it says. I should make sure that I'm very precise about what I'm writing. Calls to action prompt.gd, I should say. So we're going to come over here. We're going to do action prompt. We're going to call this the action. Calls to action prompt.gd and runs the set action function with new command as the passed on parameter. Sets up the prompt with a given command and a given text value. The command to set up with text to set for prompts table. This paste this one over here. Sets up a prompt with just a given text value. Right? And I might even get rid of this and just like drop that thing over here because I don't think there's a situation. Yeah, there's no situation which I'm going to call this by itself. So let's just do this. Just get rid of this because we're not going to need two of those. And then just to be safe, because I may wind up needing this for whatever reason, we're going to do region signals and region, and we're just going to do signal public delegate void on prompt faded event handler. So what I was doing in the downtime while the ads were going was just getting some fading stuff set up. Okay, good. All that's good. So I've set all this up ahead of time, basically so that we can get some stuff going. So the basic idea here is basically these signals here that I put down are to indicate when something is done fading in or when something is done fading out. We may not need them for anything just yet, but I'm keeping them there just so that if for whatever reason I need to know when that's happened, I can go like, okay, right, cool, just do this thing, right? There may be a point or maybe a reason where I will need to do that for whatever reason and just check that and be like, okay, right, this is the thing that we need to do, right? All right, so that's pretty much set up at this point. This is doing everything it needs to do. Now the only thing we need to do is basically set up a thing that causes this. Well, there are two things we need to do. Let's come back over here, first of all, and we need to turn the actual tutorial prompt control into its own scene. So we're going to save branch as a scene. And the reason why we do save branch as a scene is because what this does is it puts the tutorial prompt now into its own separate little scene, because the idea is that we want to be able to, when we run into a certain volume while we're walking around in our core clusters, we want to go like, hey, okay, go do this thing now, right? That's what we're looking to do here, ideally, right? So, in order to make our lives easy on this front, what we want to do is, make sure that we sit down and then we sit down and just have the tutorial prompt living in it as its own little thing. So if we need to make adjustments to the prompt, we just adjust the prompt, and then the game will follow dynamically. You'll see what I mean in a minute. But we, first of all, need to just get it up on the screen. That's the important part. So the thing that we need to sort of figure out first, aside from all of that now, is, I know I did a thing here. Okay, cool. Past me did the thing he was supposed to do. So we're going to take a trigger volume. This thing called a trigger volume over here is something that I made. So we're going to trigger volume. Do this. And now from scripts, alright, objects, we're going to do create new script. I'm going to call this one trigger volume tutorial prompt. That's what it is. Open up the tutorial prompt scene. Make sure you trigger volume tutorial prompt. And then the only thing I need to do is make sure that the tutorial prompt script is inheriting from trigger volume, because that's going to be important. Now we just need to make sure that we drop this over here. And cool, trigger volume tutorial prompt. So, the reason why we went to all this trouble is because we want to make sure that we have a thing that will do this correctly. Now, here's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to do, again, export category, tutorial prompt, set. Export act scene tutorial prompt act scene. Find this very simply as the act scene blank tutorial prompt in it, right? So we want to do this. I'm also going to make sure I do. So this region stuff that I'm doing, I don't have to do this. It just makes my life easier in terms of like script organization. Because if it's like, okay, I need to find where I put all of my exported variables and nodes, crack this thing open, bam, it's there, right? Just makes my life easier in certain aspects when it comes to that. And now we're just going to do export. exited. Okay. Area exited on area 3D exited. So what I've done here, I just have to go back and add a bit of functionality to the trigger volumes. So the trigger volumes can also detect when people are leaving. There's a reason for this. We'll deal with it later. We'll deal with what is related to it later, but not right this second. So over here, let me see something here. So no, really what we want to do here is not public override activate, and this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna convert int I is less than 0, I less than prompt items dot count I plus plus. So this thing is called a for loop, right? This big funny looking structure here is called a for loop. A for loop will run for a specified amount of times until we tell it to stop. It will run for a specified amount of times until we tell it to stop, basically. Now, before I forget, a couple of things I need to make sure that I do here. So this is already set up, so I can now get rid of this out of here. But the HUD, there is one other thing I need to do. So region exported variables. So we're just going to do end region. Okay, then we're just going to do export category layer. Export category. These export categories show up in the inspector as separate sections, so it's easier for me to like sort of see what's going on here. Export category canvas layers. Oh yeah, well, never mind. That's not going to be export category because those aren't exported. So over here, though, we do want these. So let's see. Export category. These are just going to be because I can't think of anything better. Public control prompt that. So now we're going to go to, let's see, tutorial prompt, new prompt equals scene dot, hang on. I have to remember how to do this. It's come on, brain, work with me here. There we go. There are a couple ways I can handle this, right? There are a couple ways that I can handle this. There are a couple ways that I can handle this, and this is where we start getting tricky, right? There are two options I have here, and I'm already sitting here thinking about them and going, what makes the most sense? Theoretically speaking, right? I could either have these things be generated programmatically, or if I wanted to do it a slightly less like, there are two ways I could do this, basically, for all intents and purposes. Let me kind of describe it here. So, because I've gone out of my way to make the tutorial prompt its own scene, right? I could, if I felt like it, right? I could very easily, and this is an option that's more bespoke, but it is less of a pain in the neck to try to like set up programmatically. So I may do it this way, because there are many ways, right, to actually kind of like make this work. Some which are leaning more into the programming aspect of things than just doing manual work, or the other way around, right? In this particular case, I'm willing to do a little bit of elbow grease on manual work just because I'm admittedly feeling a type of way. So we can just do tutorial prompt as a new folder name. You'll see what I'm getting at in a minute. Drop this off in here. Duplicate this, right? I can do tutorial prompt underscore move, right? Scene. Come over here. So now I'm editing the move tutorial prompt, right? So I could come over here and just do 1, 2, 3, 4. Or really, realistically, we don't even need these other two. We just need just two, right? 1, 2, bam. Okay, we've got these. Now what? Right? I can, in fact, come over to these. I can just do that. Come on. Left over here, and then right, the action prompt over here. I just right, and then those are handled, right, and then I can just come over here and over here in the prompt text control. I can do prompt text label. I can just do move, right. So if I felt like it, and I may, just for the purposes of like getting this thing up and running, make my life easier in certain aspects, right? I could just literally say, all right, all this says move, theme. I feel like I should have a theme already here, right? Yeah, cool. I may even want to go and propagate this back to the regular tutorial prompt so I don't have to change this later. Theme, quick load, want UCB default to keep this. Alright, cool. So that's handled. Right? Now, if I really and truly feel it, right, I can come back over to trigger volume tutorial prompt, right? Really, if I want to, now I can really kind of just do it like this. should we name this differently? Two. Right, so let's say I do this, right? So there are going to be issues with this implementation off the bat, but that's fine because I am not trying to test it in its perfect form yet. I just need to make sure that the thing works first. This is one of those things that is kind of like, and it's not something that you think of immediately a lot of the time, but this is sort of important for, that's not correct. I wanted, here we go, this one, that's what I wanted. I rebuilt this real quick because that is not up to date. And I just need to make sure that this is in a spot where it's, yeah, actually reachable, which is the part that I was worried about. So. Yep, so domain, transform, we want it to be 0 on this. Dead center, check everything else. Okay, cool. So we're gonna, I just need to take, okay, yeah, technically they're entity. Yeah, it's technically an entity, so we're gonna put it in here. And now dialog trigger. We want this one just a little bit further back. And then we want to look at the trigger volume one. It's right over here. Okay. Now, this trigger volume tutorial prompt, and as far as the collision shape 3D goes, the box shape 3D with the X size, we like something really ridiculous, so you can't miss it. And then the Y size is also something really ridiculous, so that you can't miss it. Nice and wide. All right. Over here to the test level. Should be ideal. All right, let's go. I know y'all can't see it. Ah, forgot to do that. All right, that's important. Forgot to do that, so that won't work. Let's actually move that one back, just right here. I forgot to do something important. So over here on the HUD, I forgot to assign this actual container node. And that's why it got upsetting, because I didn't do that. So it got upset. Now that I've done that, it shouldn't be a problem anymore. Which means it's something I probably forgot to do. I'm almost reasonably certain that there's something I forgot to do, probably. So I'm going to take a look and I'm going to double check some things. Dive on triggers. Okay. Good. Okay, so that's all set up. Which means that it's something else that I have neglected to do. Let me see here. File text, container. Okay, so it has actually made these. It's just that they're not right. They don't become visible because I forgot to do that, didn't I? Okay. That's cool. Or so they were getting made and put there, it's just that they're not being turned visible for whatever reason. So this code isn't working. Okay. Oh, that's why. Ha ha. So, what I forgot to do here. So, modulate.lerp. Let's talk about that for a second. Because I was talking about lerping last week, and then I forgot to re-explain what it does here. So, the idea behind a lerp, a linear interpolation, is what it's called, right? The idea behind a lerp is that, basically speaking, when given a specific value to move toward, as well as a percentage of how far you move toward that value, lerping basically means. So, right, I talked about this last week, but the idea behind a lerp is that linear interpolation. Linear meaning line, interpolation meaning going between 2 points. Interpol. So, now I'll spell it so it's a little bit easier. Linear inter. Oops. Right? So, with linear interpolation, linear meaning going along a line, interpolation meaning going between 2 poles, right? 2 values. So, going along a line between 2 values. If those 2 values happen to be, they could be whatever 2 values that you want. But in this case, we want 0 and 1, right? Because 0 and 1, you can technically extrapolate out to 0% and 100%, as an example, right? So the way that this is set up where it says modulate.lerp. Modulate here represents the color of the actual tutorial prompt, including its visibility. So when I say modulate.lerp to new color 1111, that means, hey, you should be taking the visibility of this thing and gradually moving it toward full visibility. 111 means that it should be colored white, which means no extra tints to it. And then the last one means that the visibility should be 1. So if you're fading in, we increase our fade percentage and then we modulate or move we move the modulation via lerping toward whatever color we set, going by how fast the fade percentage is. So if the fade percentage is 20 and we're lerping toward a value of 1, we're gradually moving up till we reach here. Similarly, if we're lerping to a value of 0, which means I need to actually do this, and I should reset the fade percentage both times. Just to make sure that it's doing this correctly, because I just realized that the math will then get messed up if I'm not careful. Okay. Huh. Then that means I don't have to do this code twice because it's basically the same thing. All right, I just made this a lot easier. So let's do it like this. I had a brain blast of gigantic proportions, and I realized that I was doing that code backwards. So this just becomes much. So just in case, I'm going to leave that initialized there, just in case we need it later. So basically, I've basically set up the code so it does the stuff I was describing. I just got rid of extra redundant code that I didn't need. I thought lerp was when you did role play outdoors. Anyway, the idea here is that the reason why I changed the code is because I realized very quickly that because lerp in this case is always moving from 0 to... I didn't mean to interrupt, sorry. You require for... No, the stare was not me... I'm going to come over to emphatic for a second. The stare was not me being upset. The stare, like, you're... you're okay. You're okay. The stare was just like that. That was the most parent core joke. So the stare was just like you went there stare. I don't remember exactly at which point I had to look away from, but I can say that my brother is especially capable of turning a 50-second conversation into 30 minutes. I think. Oh no. Oh god. 5 years. 5 years. 5 years. I 5 years. 5 years. And this is what I suffer. I golly. Okay. Lerps. I appreciate you, Val. Thank you very much. I needed that, but also okay. I said that the joke was parent core, and Val took that to admittedly its very logical conclusion. So I did it to myself. I'm the one wearing the goofy cap. It's me. But also expertly timed. I got it under this circumstance. I absolutely have to hand it to her. She got me. Alright. But me being absolutely fucking owned to one side. Let me go back to explaining the thing about lerping. Right. So because of the way that lerp is set up, really, ideally, in this particular case, I'm always counting upward, right? It's just a matter of making sure that depending on whether I'm fading in, if I'm fading in, I want to make sure that I lerp toward visibility. If I'm fading out, I want to lerp toward invisibility. So we have it set up, right? The fade percentage has to be between 0 and 1 in order to make sure that I don't overshoot or undershoot. And once our fade percentage has hit 1, we're done fading in either direction. If we're fading in, we make sure that we stop fading in and we emit a signal for that. If we're not, emit a signal that we faded out and cue us up to be free, right? That's the idea. So we're going to do that. Let's build that. Okay. Now that I have actually paid attention to which way the code is running, we should at least get them to be visible. The thing that I expect to happen, really, is that we are going to probably get several of the move prompts to show up every time I step into where the tutorial is for movement, and that is okay. I need to just make sure that it is getting up on screen first. I know y'all can't see it. Give me a second. I'm gonna fix it. Sometimes the window does a thing where it doesn't like capture that correctly, and it's okay. There we go. So yeah, every time we step in, you see it makes it, right? And that's fine. This is what we want. Now, for the purpose of making my life easier, let's also just do over here. We're just going to do an array. We're going to do an array of tutorial prompt. Let's see. Owned prompt. Make my life a lot easier. Then we're going to do public override ready. Owned prompts. A new array of that. Just to make sure that when we first do that, let me freshly initialize a nice new array of tutorial prompts. And now what we're going to do is new. We're going to do owned prompts.add new prompt. Right? And now public override deactivate is very simple. We're going to go for each prompt and owned prompts, and this time we can just do tutorial prompt and owned prompts, and we're just going to say prompt.fade prompt out. Right? Nice and simple. So this is the way that we're handling this, right? The prompts that are owned by this trigger volume. So it's very simple. Basically, literally every time, whenever we step in, we're going to make sure that we basically every time that we step into the trigger volume for the tutorial prompt, we're going to make sure that we actively I may want to see if I can like okay, cool. So then let's actually do that. Okay, we may not want to do that yet. Do this right now. I might be cooking too there. Might be cooking a little bit too hard there. Let's not do that just yet. Sometimes, occasionally, I have a problem where, and this happens, where I get too clever for my own good and I start adding things into the thing that I don't need to add in. It's like I can be chill. Don't have to do all that. Be chill for me. Enthusiasm is endearing if you check yourself about it. Yeah. You can see, right? Now when I step out, they fade away, right? And for this is much more preferable. I could also, if I felt like moving the container to somewhere else, that would also help control where these things should show up, right? So, basically speaking, right, the reason why I said that I had two ways of doing this, which is either the bespoke way of doing it, right? I could either do it the bespoke way, where it's like, right, the tutorial, like I have to make individual scene prompts for each tutorial pop-up that I want to do, or I can do them programmatically. The reason why, even though it would take longer in terms of like actually doing individual tutorial prompts, right? Because it would take longer to do individual ones, but it means that I can tailor each one and be absolutely sure that it fits right and it does all this other stuff. The complication to doing things programmatically, while it's useful and while it's cool, because it is useful and cool to be able to do things programmatically. Sometimes you run into an issue where when you're trying to deal with something bespoke, it doesn't, like, things don't quite line up the way that you would like, right? Or sorry, when you're doing something programmatically, you have to go out of your way if you want something bespoke to look correct, right? On the other hand, if I have to sit down and make individual like containers for each of these things, is it more work than doing it programmatically and being able to spawn it on the fly? Yes, but it means that I can tweak each one individually with a little bit more ease than if I didn't do that. Okay, so let me see if I can figure out though why, because the transform should be controlled by what's inside of it. Okay, so we need to shrink this one, I think. If I shrink this one, I think it will stop being so upsetting, right? So let me go to the top text control. I need to go to the layout. I need to go to transform. Let's do 400 instead, right? The enthusiasm is endearing. You need to check this out. Thank you. So yeah, like, so in this case, right? Sure, having to like do individual like prompts for move and stuff is kind of like a pain in the ass. It's true. But right, if for whatever reason, for example, right, I need to make this one shorter for whatever reason, right? Whoops. Let's not do that. I just need you to be 0 and 100. Right? So let's say, for example, that I want this one to be shorter on purpose. It's like maybe only out to like. So let me see if I can figure this out real quick. Because margin container needs to be, I think. So if I chunk this down to here, right? Tutorial prompt BG, that fits fine. Margin container is what's not fitting. So transform. Hang on a second. Margin container, you need to be out to the full size of this. Okay, cool. Thank you, actually. Okay. So, okay. You're being weird now. HBox container codes, because that's. So, this is how big. Okay. 275. That's about as big as we want it. Okay. So, you margin container needs to go back to 270. Why are you doing this thing? Why are you doing this thing? Not. Alright. It's because of the stuff inside of it. The stuff inside of it is too wide, so it's causing problems because I need to shrink this stuff down. So 50, 100. This should be like maybe no more than 100. There we go. It was getting pissy at me because this thing was too wide, so it couldn't shrink down correctly. Take this and I just nudge it over. Oh no, I can probably just do this, and we'll get close enough to what looks about right insofar as that's concerned, right? So, right, if for whatever reason, and this is the thing, right? This is sort of like a trade decision to make in this particular sense. Because is it useful to be able to probably like actually make tutorial pop-ups programmatically? Yes. So I'm going to keep that function up. However, comma, I do also think that it is relatively important that I have the ability, even if it means I have to do more work, to be able to control the bespoke stuff a little more easily. Remember to save that? I did, and it's probably just being stretched out by the it's probably being stretched out um, by the horizontal box container. Or not, sorry, by the vertical box container that makes up that thing. It's probably getting stretched out by that. Which is why it doesn't look like the small little compact size that it was there. Because I'll explain what I mean. If you look at the HUD and you look over here at where the prompt container is and how it's vertical, let's try that. And I think that should keep it from expanding them further outward than I want them to. I think that should do it anyway. I forget, but it might not. I think this is the way it's supposed to work. We'll live. It'll work for me. It's good enough. So, basically now at this point, so this means that I do have to like sit down and like do bespoke I do have to do like bespoke tutorial items, right? For each of them. This is true. I do have to. Um, and I could, and there are probably ways for me to like work around to a certain extent. Um, so as an example, right? I do have a way, if I so chose, right? To, for example, I'm pretty sure, right? We do export simply public override process. Very simple. If should know. Hang on a second. I know we haven't had. I'm just thinking a thing. explain what this little like clever line of code that I put in should do in practice. And the ad break is done. Okay, so basically speaking, right? The quick and dirty way of getting around the particular issue of like, oh, but each character has different abilities. So if you have a tutorial, if you have tutorials that are specific to right, if you have tutorials that are specific to specific characters, how do you make sure that they don't all spawn at the same time, right? If you notice, right, we have under here tutorial character type, right? Which is very explicitly meant to sort of specify who can trigger a particular tutorial. If any, then we're good, right? But if it says funk, choral, or voke, then then it will only show up if that character is present. If not, disappears, right? And that's very much on purpose. So why don't we take these two? Let's move them. I want to take these two over here. Make sure that the hopper isn't like falling. So let's move those two over here. So we don't... Thank you so much for the follow. Deeply appreciate it. Keep those followers anonymous so that people can lurk if they so choose to lurk. Welcome on in. Welcome to the Gage Gang. I hope you enjoy your time here. Glad to have you. So let's see here. So we're gonna take this one. I just wanna. I need the children to be editable. That's what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this shape. Oh, can't edit it. Lol. All right, that's fine. I could make that one local, and I guess it would be fine. If I do make local, yeah, make local, and then I should be able to. Nope, it doesn't let me change it. Okay, that's nice. Okay, I have to just redo it. So we're going to do 200, 200. 50, and then we want to take the trigger volume. We want to take the trigger volume itself and just move it forward just a little bit. pretty much only one other thing I need to do, which is, does the HUD know whether or not the, yeah, okay, the HUD has the ability to know that. So let's just do a thing. We do public bool call it dialog running, and we'll have the get return yarn dialog runner dot is dialog running. Now for the tutorial prompt, okay, so we're gonna do public override on area 3D entered, and we're going to say if HUD script instance dot while running is false, then we do that whenever we enter. I need to double check to see if we have something for staying or not. BRB double let us back in. Do what you feel. Curious about something. Godot. Okay. It's trying to be clever for me. So what I'm doing here is setting up a what I'm doing here is setting up a thing to fade out the prompts if you happen to step in while the game is paused or the dialogue is running or whatever, right? Then we can kind of like sit and queue it for a second. Actually, because this is basically going to wind up looking the same, let's just make this neater and just do if script.instance.dialog running is false. We can just take these two, drop them in here, get rid of that condition here, and get rid of this condition here, and then that should be fine. Actually, we do this just to make sure that we don't accidentally repop these until they're done doing that. So once we've done the for each loops, then we can clear those out and say that's good. Okay, I think that should work. So the reason why I went to all that trouble is to make sure that if, for example, I take the collision shape here for our movement prompt, and if I extend that collision shape backward a little bit more. So, actually, I forgot to ask. Debug Lounge. If you feel comfortable sharing, you do not have to. I would assume by your name that means that you do some sort of programming or other like programming adjacent. You don't have to share that if you don't want to. If you're just here to learn, that is also okay. You can feel free to talk a little bit about that if you so choose. If not, you just want to learn, that's fine. But yeah, the reason why I went to all this trouble is so that ideally speaking, right? Right? So you saw that while we were in the dialogue, it wasn't showing, right? While we were in the dialogue, it wasn't showing. While we had the dialogue up and running, wasn't showing. Once we did, okay, cool. Then it appears. That's the reason why I went to all that trouble with all of those checks just now, so that we wait and we don't show the dialogue or we don't show the tutorial text while we're doing that. And then once we are, right, or once we're out of there, then we do that. Our prompts being queued to fade in as soon as possible. Our prompt being queued to fade out as soon as possible. Run the base trigger volume setup, then make a new array of blank owned. Run base processing. Then, if this tutorial is not meant for any character, remove this tutorial prompt if the specific character is not the one in game. If the yarn dialogue, if dialogue runner is running, fade in any. Welcome back, Cat Wizard. Prompts we have queued to fade in. or I should say, if the dialog runner isn't running, I should split this into two parts. So if the dialog runner isn't running, fade in any prompts we have, or fade out any prompts we have queued to fade out. If the dialog script isn't running, do the normal check for activation. If the dialog runner isn't running. Else, if it is running, cue the prompt to fade in if we haven't already. Here, go through each of the loaded up tutorial scenes, add them to the container node. Look up tutorial prompt packets, add them to the container. Fade the prompt in. So basically speaking, the way that this is set up now is that it's set up such that, right, while we have any dialogue running, no tutorial prompts will show up. If we happen to be already standing in or we make contact with an area where we should have a tutorial prompt show up, it will just queue it to show that prompt later. Hail Satan. Newly anointed by devil, hail Satan, worship a different devil. That's a good one. Move this here, but we also need to make this one a little slimmer. don't need it to be nearly as wide as this is. Yeah, you can like calm down. Like, be like 75. You don't have to be like you don't have to be like wide like big. You don't have to be like big chunk is wide. You just need you. Yeah. Okay, no, don't do both. Oh no. Are they linked together? Are they linked together because of the Don't do that, please. That was stressing me out. So that's good to know. Um, so basically, there does come a point where, uh, oh my god, ah, y'all are so messy. Um, okay, here's the computer tutorial prompt. Jump. This one. Control. So yeah, this is the part where I'm like, yeah, making bespoke ones individually is kind of a pain. It's true. Oh, has that always been there? Has have I always had the option to just have it fit right? No. This entire time, I have to check if that's in other versions of Godot aside from this one. Because if it is, this means that I've literally just been mixed sweating, getting. I know it's something I know it's something I would know better than Chad. I was the question was like semi rhetorical, only in the sense of like, okay, now I gotta go check. Man, fuck. If that's been here this whole time, I'm gonna be so upset. If that has been here this whole time, this means that all this fuckery that I've been doing to try to get text to stay centered, I would be so angry. I'm going to be so angry. Because this means all this time, all this nonsense I've been trying to do with keeping text centered, I didn't have to do any of that. I just looked. I don't know if that's due to Godot 4.4 or not. Oh, tip, don't look it up. Nope. I gotta know. I have to know. I have to know. Assume it's a new feature. I could, but I have to know. 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 Ha! Ha! It's a new feature. It's not in Godot 4.3. It's not in Godot 4.3. It isn't, because I'm looking at it in Shoot Lancer, and Shoot Lancer is in Godot 4.3, and it's not there. Right under the main rich text label? Nope, it's not there. It's a new feature. Val's right. It's a new feature. So I don't have to be upsetty about it. It's all good. It is a new feature. And I'm immensely happy about that. The dichotomy of being happy that SJ is not, I'm going to swap that for upset, because in this context, technically you could say that's A plus. So, the dichotomy of being happy SJ's not upset and missing out on watching him flip his shit. Yeah. Well, here we go. I mean, you know, I don't know. Thank you for calling me on that. Yeah. A friend of mine explained it to me like this because a lot of people, when I say that, sometimes people, not you obviously, but like a lot of people, when I say that, they go, "Wait, what do you mean?" And I'm like, that the thing about it is that when you use that word in that context, right? The implication is that you're so upset that you are, insert insert ableist term here, right? If you're talking about it self-referentially in the context of something completely different, that's different. But if you're using that word and you mean upset, just say upset or irritated or angry or something like that. But if you are calling yourself that self-referentially, it's a whole different thing that I don't touch. My general rule of thumb is that if people are using like certain terms self-referentially, I leave it alone sometimes because it's not my business. But if you're using it to like describe or ascribe states to somebody that they didn't agree to, then it's like I don't touch that. That's generally the way that I operate. And that has worked out so far. And I only ever really talk about it like on stream or in spaces I control, because like outside of that, I can't control it with other people, and getting into long conversation with other people sometimes just like it becomes complicated. But yeah, that's generally the way that I roll. Ba, 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 ba. Thank you for calling me out. Yeah, just me doing due diligence. I feel similarly, very much a work in progress when it comes to catching myself, though. Yeah. One of the reasons why my volume of profanity has increased over the last insert X amount of time here is mostly because swearing, especially if you're very creative with it, swearing is really good for getting around, like conveying the same sentiments that you mean when you're saying something, when you would say something ableist, except without saying something ableist. If you swear correctly. For example, right? The way that I substituted, like missing out on watching him flip his shit, same thing. Just, Alrighty. Okay, all that's good. I wanted to do the jumping. Right, jump, and then that's the last one before we get up out of here. So here, we're going to swap this for jump. We're going to save this one. And then we're going to come back over to the test level, right? And over here for the jump tutorial prompt, we're going to switch out this one. We're just going to switch this. Quick load. We want _jump. Tutorial prompt, jump. Goes in here. Save this. So, while I do have to, like, at least with the way that I currently have it set up, while I do have to make these all, like, bespoke tutorials, right? While I do have to make all these, like, bespoke tutorial items, I need to make that bigger. While I do have to make all these bespoke tutorial items, it makes it a little bit easier to just, like, it makes it a little easier to sort of just like make sure that I put certain things in the right spot. So we're gonna hang on a second. Ah, damn it! I disjointed these by accident again. Hold on. No, you go back to where you belong. You belong over here. So, again, one of the things. So, first of all, let me go over to the trigger volume for the tutorial prompts. I need to. You stay in place. You're not allowed to move anymore. Like, you just stay in place, because I don't want you to be in a situation where you move. So, one of the things about Godot, right, and this whole thing about collision shapes and stuff like that, if you are not careful with the way that you move and handle these collision shapes, right, you can accidentally do a thing where you disjoint the collision shape from the actual position that you want. When you disjoint the collision shape from the actual position that you want it to be sitting at. I do it all the time, and it makes me scream. And I'm willing to accept that this is kind of like this is just what it is when working with Godot, and I have no issue with that. It's just that I have to make a point of making sure that I lock the collision shapes into place, or that I'm otherwise not moving the collision shapes when I mean to be moving the area 3D. Because what happens is then you disjoint the hitbox, you disjoint the collision area in weird ways that, if you're like me, gives you intense amounts of agita, because you were like, I fucked it up. So move is is there, jump is here. Oh, I know why that's doing that, but I can fix that. I can just do this. Name plus underscore plus I. All right. But yeah, as you can see, now I have move and jump prompts, and they're in and they work, and they fade in and they fade out. And it's all well and good, right? So while I do have to make bespoke, individual, tutorial prompt scenes for each of the actions that I want to have done, I do have to do individual bespoke ones. It makes it easier. I didn't answer that. I've had a philosophical question about this for a while. The word is in a different language and can be translated aimlessly, but also some translations are not. Does that mean the word is or isn't? That's a good question. My general philosophy on this. Okay, I'm going to say this with the caveat that obviously, right, I am not the definitive person to talk about this sort of thing, and I admit that there are certain languages under which it's like I don't have a right to say this. The most I am going to say is that if I have the option between translating a word in a way that's ableist and a way that's not, and the way that's not still carries the general meaning of what is going to happen, I'm not going to use the ableist. The case in point to this, for example, we can talk about the word baka. In Japanese, right, there are various ways of translating that, some of which are ableist when translated into English, and some of which are not. I would choose, given the option, personally, to say, to translate it in a way that isn't. So to answer the question that you're asking, it depends on the context, and I would say it can be, or it may or may not be, depending on how you translate it. So, for example, if you're like, so Sean, if you are using the word, right, like if you're translating the word baka from Japanese to English, how would you say it? I would probably go with fool. I'd probably go with like fool or clown or something similar to that, as opposed to like actively using the more common and more ableist ways of like phrasing it, right? Here is where localization is also an interesting thing, right? Because, right, baka and bakayaro, for example, right? There are different connotations to each of those, not in the sense that they literally mean something different, but that the attitude expressed by them is different, right? So we're at me, for example, and it's like, all right, I have either of those words in a script. How would I translate that? How would I localize it more specifically, right? So baka, I might just do like, oh, fool or clown, right, or something like that, right? The official song title of the song Bakuri Ties, I've been a fool, exactly, right? Whereas like Bakeyaro, I might, if I wanted to be spicy, I could be like asshole or like dipshit or something like that, right? Because at least because yaro, right, is a very rude way of addressing a person, right? Functionally, you could say it means not literally bastard, but it conveys that intention of calling somebody a bastard, right? In terms of like the level of rudeness. It is not explicitly sin, right? Or if you wanted to translate it more, or you wanted to translate it more gently, right? You could still say jerk or whatever, right? But calling somebody like, but yeah, no, right? If I was going to like localize that, I have options. If I want to be, if I wanted to be cruder, I could say jackass, right? I could say asshole. If I wanted to be, if I wanted to be softer, like you lousy jerk, right? Or you creep, right? And it sort of carries the same connotation. It depends, right? You sort of have to look at it, even in those contexts, it's like, all right, who's the one saying this? Like, Bakeado is usually something that's said by, like, it is a very masculine, coded sort of way of speaking. Again, I'm just talking about generally, yeah, it's more accurate to say it's the second person pronoun than negative. Yeah, exactly, right? So that's why it's like, depending on how you want to phrase it and how, in the context that you're talking about it, and this is why you can't rely on DeepL to do your translations for you because they don't catch these nuances. This is why you can't rely on DeepL to do translations for you because they don't catch these nuances, right? Yeah, you derogatory as a translation, not you actually. I know what you mean. But yeah, like this is why you can't rely on DeepL to do translating for you because they don't catch nuances like this. But to philosophically answer the question that Stubby is talking about, which was if a word is in a different language, it can be translated ableistly, but also some translations are not. Does that mean the word is or isn't? The answer to me is it depends. If you have the option to not translate it in a way that is ableist, that is more ideally the better way to do it, right? At least personally. If you are making a game that is talking about ableism and discussing ableism and has to use ableist terms as part of that discussion, that's a whole different can of worms, right? But for me, insofar as like I'm concerned, I'm like, it depends on how you translate it, and that choice and that distinction is important insofar as like, what is your level of culpability of grammar, right? I am of the personal opinion that in situations like the one I'm describing, where you are having to discuss like the motives or externality of somebody, and you are trying to avoid applying an ableist term to them that they did not accept for themselves or did not claim for themselves, don't use that on them. Don't do that. And I realize it's not something I talk about very often, so I will, since we're basically at the industry, I'm going to divert for one last second. This is relevant to one of the things that I talk about on this stream a lot as regards like learning and teaching and things like that. The reason, aside from like it's just bad to equate things that are bad to insert ableist term here, because you equate people who may be living with conditions that have been stigmatized that way and equating it with being bad. There's that. There's also the idea that just because like somebody is quote unquote not intelligent in all of the other ableist ways you can think of, like whether somebody's smart or not doesn't have anything to do with whether or not they are a good person or a bad person. Like those two things are entirely separate. So like throw that out. Say what you mean. If you think something's good, say that's good. That's cool. That's amazing, right? If you think something's bad, say that that's bad or it doesn't make sense or whatever, right? Like, you don't have to be like spitting out $1, $5, $10 words for substitutes. Just be more specific than just saying, oh, that's just, or whatever, right? Like, no, you don't need to do that. But more important, relating to the thing I usually like bring this back to. A lot of the time, people will just dump on themselves for not understanding something, and the first thing that they will jump to is like negative self-talk and heap ableism on top of that. Like, I'm not smart enough to do that. I'm just and it's like, no, it has nothing to do. No, everybody has different ways of learning, right? Everybody has different ways of learning things, and if you are not taught a skill, or if you do not learn a skill in the way that makes the most sense for your brain, then yes, you're going to have trouble learning the thing. Even if you do learn the thing in the way that works best for your brain, you may still have trouble with it. And that's not because you're not smart or insert 5 billion intellectually ableist words here. It's not because of that. You don't know what you don't know, and it's okay to not know things. It's okay to take a little longer to know, to like figure out how to understand something. Like, that's fine. If a skill can be practiced, right, then it can be improved. And if a skill can be improved, then you can improve at it. Does that mean that you will be the best at that thing that ever was? Not necessarily. But you don't have to be the best at something in order to do something, and in order to learn how to do something. Like, okay, I'm gonna frame this in a way that I try not to like talk down myself here. I am not the world's best programmer. I don't think I ever will be. I am not the world's best fighting game player. I don't think I ever will be. But I can learn how to play fighting games, even if I do not ultimately play fighting games the best of anybody. I don't have to compete professionally to be a fighting game player. I do not have to be like a god tier artist in order to be an artist and draw. Like, that's and I'm saying this as somebody who is also incredibly perfectionist and very hard on himself about not being able to do things at the skill level that he likes to. I'm just being real with y'all. I am not telling you anything I don't tell myself. Free yourself of that. It is okay. Being a dilettante, right? Somebody who dabbles in a lot of different things and maybe is not like an extreme expert at any particular thing, that is okay. It is okay to do that. I am giving you permission. I am freeing you as much as I can free you from the need to be a perfectionist. And I try to free myself from this all the time. It is okay. You do not have to be perfect at the thing, right? If it's worth doing, it's worth doing mediocre. Exactly. Like, the point is, if you want to get better at the thing, you have to do the thing. And getting better at the thing does not necessarily mean that you will become an expert at the thing, but it means you will understand the thing better. And maybe you are not going to be like the top 1% of the 1% or whatever, right? You're not in that bracket, but that's fine. You do not have to be in the bracket of the best there ever was at something in order to enjoy doing it. That's not beneficial to your liberty. That's not beneficial to the way that like you live as a human being. It's not. Free yourself of that shit. It's okay. You don't have to be great at everything. You don't. If you enjoy doing it, then that's the part that matters. And right? So that's why I'm like, am I the absolute sharpest programmer that there ever was? No, right? Not really, right? There are a lot of things with programming that, especially things that lean heavier into the math stuff, that like go way over my head. And I have to work really, really hard at trying to make sure that it all comes together. And maybe sometimes I held it together with like duct tape, spit, and a miracle. And that's what happens. But if it works and I got the thing to work, even if I didn't get it the first time, maybe I'll get it the second, maybe I'll get it the third time, maybe I'll get it the fourth time. But the important thing is that like I gotta do something, right? If I am between the two extremes of choosing not to do anything because I'm too afraid of not getting it perfect, right? Or trying the thing and fucking it up, but at least I tried, right? That's the important part. And I know that given like a lot of how difficult it can be, right? To sit down and do a thing and try a thing, and it's like, but I failed at it. This feels shitty. I've been there. I get that. But the point is that at least you tried it. And I don't mean in like the funny Simpsons cake, at least you tried cynical ass way that like Matt Groening and them talk about it. I mean in the literal sense of you as a human being have gained something from the effort of trying that. Even if it's something as frivolous as I just tried this thing in a game and I didn't like it. This is a silly video game, doesn't matter, whatever. Like, no, the point is that you tried something. You tried to push yourself. And it's okay if it's something frivolous or serious. The point is that if you are afraid to try for the small things, you become even more afraid to try for the big things, and then you don't try at all. And that's why I say sometimes you gotta give a shit about things, right? This is why I say that you gotta give a shit about things. You have to care about something. Ideally not something that's like horrible to other people or to yourself, but you gotta give a shit about something. Because when you give a shit about things and you actually try them, and try to just push yourself a little bit more, even with like just small stuff, it gives you the confidence to try to push yourself for the big things when it counts. Right? And sometimes maybe you're not up to trying the thing, and that's okay too, right? Like, this is not me saying that. It's a complicated thing, right? Because there are times where it's like you enjoy the thing enough that even when you're having the false starts, you want to keep going, you want to keep trying. And then there are times where you've done it and you feel demoralized, like, man, I fucking can't. And there's some days where it's just gonna be like you feel like you fucking can't, and you just walk off, right? As that one particular viral video says, sometimes some days are fucked and they cannot be unfucked, and it's just like, all right, whatever. I'm gonna walk off, cool off. Maybe I come back to this never. Maybe I don't. Maybe I come back to this. Maybe I never come back to this. Right? But that's okay. That's okay too. Right? This is all part of like living. But you don't know what you will like, what you don't like, what things may mean something to you, what things don't, unless you try. And if you decide to discount yourself from trying so that you never feel like a failure, you're missing out on life. And I know that, especially if you're living in the United States right now, like the idea of like risking anything right now is like some wild shit. So I'm not telling you to like just like go out and go bet the farm on like shit you can't, like on shit that you're like really scared of, right? I'm not saying that you gotta like bet the farm and like I'm not saying this like you gotta like bet the farm and like throw all your caution to the wind, but like be willing to try something. Be willing to like put your heart in something, because when you do that and you push yourself a little further in the small ways, you get the strength to push yourself further in the big ways. If it sucks, hit the bricks. Exactly. Like, if you have the option to hit the bricks, life is too short to spend it doing shit you hate if you don't want to do it. If you're enjoying the thing, but it's being a pain in the ass, it's different from, I don't like this and it's pissing me off and I hate doing it, right? You feel out the difference after a while. And you get there eventually. Keep your head up. This is my approximately monthly occasion of thinking, fuck, he was an incredible teacher. Hang on. Sorry, I gotta take a second. Thank you, Val. I appreciate that. That is actually a thing that my therapist recommended. It's like if you get a moment that feels really good or something that feels really nice, tap it in. Like, use the physical sensation of doing. Use that physical sensation to ground yourself in that and to remember that thing. So yeah, that got me right in the kokoro. A very doki doki sort of feeling, you know? Okay, let's find something to go hang out with, because it's about that time. Okay. Stream schedule. Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern time is probably more fighting games. I don't know. They might play fucking BlazBlue or something. I think King of Fighters 15 is staying in the rotation because I bought it already. Despite the whole thing that I feel very ambivalent about SNK about. So we'll see. I'll decide that. Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Maybe. I may be a little late. I may go visit my parents for a little bit on Sunday, so it may be a little late. Ideally at 5 o'clock, if not later. More Pokemon Crystal. That's Sunday. Next Wednesday is more game dev stuff. For people that are in the Gilded that know about the thing, as a reminder, next week Friday is when I find out about the thing. So, next week Friday is the interview for the thing, and then after that is the other thing. So, Spirit Bomb energy up. Deeply appreciate that. If y'all got it, we're gonna find somebody to hang out with. So I would appreciate if y'all at least come along with the raid if you can. If you can't and you got a dip, I get it. No fuss. Nightbot more or less said the important things already, but I'm just gonna run us down the 3 important ones anyway, just to be sure that they make it on there. I made a point to physically ground myself in the moment, so I'll remember it better. It's one of the sweetest things anyone's ever said. So yeah, links, game analysis, design articles I do on my NeoCities blog. I lost a little bit of steam after some stuff. Nothing bad, but at some point I will have to I'll probably add another thing on there. I have to do the blog posts like manually formatted, so it takes a little while. Past game design articles up on my NeoCities. I may try to port some over. Stream pods are up on my YouTube. Ko-Fi, if you want to support me in the stream but don't want to give money to Amazon and Jeff Bezos, Ko-Fi is better for that. I get that money immediately as opposed to having to wait for a Twitch payout, and I keep more. Throne, I would probably put like better blackout curtains up there on things like that. Throne you can use for anonymous gift giving and things like that if you feel the need to help support on that front. The card has all my other social media links. Mostly these days I'm active on Blue Sky. If you want to know more about Munity, which is the indie game studio that I helped co-found, we're democratically run and led. You can go over to munity.games. You can check out our Patreon. Has both a free tier and a paid tier. Both of those give you access to our Discord, where you get to hear more about the stuff they're doing as we sort of figure it out. And then for Pay What You Want prototype of our first game, Shoot Lancer, demo. It's a demo at this point. You can go over to our itch page. At some point, we will be updating Shoot Lancer with some of the newer stuff that you've seen me show off previously. I can't say when yet, but probably sometime by the end or after the end of this month. And then Gilded, if you want to hang out with us when stream's not running and you don't mind making a Roblox account, you literally don't have to use for anything else ever. You can make a Roblox account and join us over on Gilded. If you don't want to fuck with Roblox like that, I get it. No pressure. I understand. The reason why we hang out with Roblox is because, or with Gilded, is because Gilded has not forced, aside from forcing Roblox accounts, which is like the worst thing that they've done. You don't get like weird AI stuff. You don't get forced advertisements in Gilded, and a lot of the features that you have to pay for or have a community server for in Discord, Gilded already has. So that's why we use it. But if that's not your jam, if you don't want to fuck with that, I get it. I completely understand. Okay, we are gonna go hang out with. It might be a G to the next level day. I think it feels like it might be a G to the next level sort of day because we have not been by G's stream in at least a month, and I know that they are currently up and running doing stuff. I think. Maybe. Or, wait. No. I know where we're going. How long has she been up? How long has she been on? Okay, not long enough for her to be leaving soon. We're gonna go hang out with Ludo Draconis VT. The reason why is because, KT does art for Shoot Lancer, one of the other co-founders of Unity. We never get to raid her. We're gonna go raid her right now. So, give her an SGH does raids when you get in there. Throw in your favorite emotes. They don't have to be my emotes. Whatever emotes you feel. Doesn't really matter to me. Make them appropriate. Seriously, make them appropriate. Thank y'all for coming by stream. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Wear a mask. Don't go outside if you don't have to. But you have to. Wear a mask. Be excellent to each other. Don't have to be against racist, terms, sexists, anti-queer folks, or fascists. Black Lives Matter. Trans rights and human rights. Reproductive rights, as in controlling your own body, yourself, with the things that you know you have a right to, are human rights. Palestine, the Sudan, the Congo, New Caledonia must all be free. None of us are free until war. If you want to make a difference in the world and you can't be out there doing the march, doing whatever, do what you can in the area where you can, in the ways that you can, for the people that you can. You don't gotta go far afield to go do any of it. Just look out for your people. Do what you can. All right, y'all. Thanks for coming by. Let's go Bob and KT. I'll catch you on the flip side. Deuces.